is interesting. Minus 116s, minus 120s in the marketplace. We're seeing now minus 140s across the board and 6.5s on the total.
He's not a big strikeout pitcher. His metrics look terrible, but he somehow seemingly get 5 innings, 6 innings, only 1 earned run. It's because he's a super ground ball pitcher, induces that soft and medium contact. He can essentially sap the power away from the Dodgers.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
What do you make of the season that Barkley had last year as he piled on the yards to get over 2,000, and what can that look like this year?
His year could have been much better with different circumstances here. So he was great. I assume he'll be great again. You want to take Jahmyr Gibbs? I don't have an issue with it, but, Barkley, you're going to lose the tush-push.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
How are you going to compete against a guy with 15 entries?
A lot of the guys that won Survivor at the Circa, because since I'm there every single year for contest weekend, one guy won it all with 1 entry. And the truth is, he told me that he maxed out his entries the next year because he had the money to do it, and it was a brain. It messed with his brain, right?
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Big Fish is the best player in the WNBA. She is running away with the MVP award. Why is that? Caitlin Clark, injured. Asia Wilson, not playing at Asia Wilson level, but it's more about the fact about what's around her has been an issue. So to me, Fish is almost like the MVP because everyone else has gone down in some way, shape, or form.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
NFL owners to vote soon on a deal that would see ESPN buy NFL Network. Plus, Qatar looks to be the first Middle Eastern country to host the Olympics. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, presented by Atlassian. From FOS Studios here in New York City, I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Dan Robertson for Renee Washington. Thanks so much for joining us here on FOS Today. We talk about the biggest news at the intersection of sports, business, and culture. Later today, we'll bring you straight to Charlotte for ACC Media Days. But let's start with headlines in the shoot-around.
Yes, thank you, Dan, and good to have you here. And let's start in the NFL. It's Bengals star defensive end Trey Hendrickson telling ESPN's Adam Schefter that he's not going to report to training camp. He even posted a picture on Instagram that he's in Florida. They say he continues to seek a long-term deal with the team since last year. Now, the 4-time Pro Bowler has been holding out over guaranteed money and has made clear he will not play on the final year of his current $16 million deal. And the Bengals are also still negotiating with Shamar Stewart, Dan, the only first-round pick that is yet to sign so far.
Well, Hendrickson putting the team on blast. And, sometimes these holdouts work. I feel like more often they don't work out so well. We had a good story on the site pointing out that the guys who might get the best deals are going to be the traded players, not necessarily these holdout guys. But a lot more news to come. We're kind of only seeing the very beginning of this season, as you say.
And the big talk has all been about guaranteed money, which we know is always a big thing in the NFL. There have been reports that maybe Hendrickson's been looking for 3 years guaranteed, similar to some of the offers of other defensive players in the NFL. And the reports are maybe the Bengals, who have been notoriously criticized by fans as not spending a ton of money on players, only offering maybe a year of guaranteed money.
And if you're the guy, get the guaranteed money. But if you're the team, be careful, because Deshaun Watson.
Oh, good point, yes. Well, meanwhile, let's move to college sports. In an attempt to flee the American Conference, Memphis reportedly offered the Big 12 an offer close to $200 million in sponsorship deals. And they said that they would not take media distribution money from ESPN or Fox just to join the conference. However, the proposal did not even reach a vote of conference presidents. A source telling FOS, quote, "It was clear relatively quickly that the interest, Dan, wasn't there."
Well, great reporting for Amanda Kristovich. I mean, kind of brutal, about Memphis. And in this kind of constant conference realignment shakeup, which it's head spinning, right? Keeping track of Mountain West and Pac-12, which went down to Pac-2 and is now quickly rebuilding. It's hard to keep track of who wants to go where, who's in. But this was a little bit of a twist, because what we've been seeing for about a year is this school is going to this conference, the end. This school wanted in, conference doesn't want him.
Yeah, and in this case for Memphis, it's a similar playbook to how SMU got into the ACC by basically pushing away those media distribution deals. But it's clear there's not interest there for more expansion.
We want in so badly. We won't take the media money. And by the way, this also is a nice kind of, I don't want to say PR win, but Big 12 gets to say, look, there's schools that we're too good for. Even though, as we'll discuss with David at ACC Media Days, it's still the SEC and Big 10 as the power two.
Elsewhere, ESPN reportedly is close to a deal with Richard Jefferson that would see him return to the network's #1 play-by-play NBA team, that alongside Mike Breen, while Doris Burke's spot is still undecided, this according to The Athletic. Now, if Burke were moved, Tim Legler is reportedly considered the leading candidate to replace her, but the network, Dan, is also toying with the idea of just a two-person booth of Breen and Jefferson.
Yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, I'm a huge Doris Burke fan, but I agree that this particular season, specifically in the postseason, that trio just kind of didn't work out. I keep thinking of ESPN's Monday Night Football crew and how for years they just kind of haven't been able to get the right mix. I mean, I remember the Jason Witten Monday Night Football attempt. So, Doris Burke is still going to be a star at ESPN no matter what happens,
she's
even if she's not on this lead team. That's right, she's still under contract. But it's hard for me to figure that Tim Legler will be so much better. They're trying to figure out that jigsaw puzzle.
Yes, and they haven't really been able to do it since Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson were part of that three-person team.
That's right.
All right, let's stay with ESPN, as NFL owners have been informed to be ready for a potential vote next month on a long-discussed acquisition of NFL media by parent company Disney. This would see the worldwide leader own NFL Network and NFL Red Zone. So let's take a look in today's main event. All right, let's bring in FOS reporter Eric Fisher. So, Eric, how close to a deal are we here?
Closer than we've been. There's still work to be done. It's not a done deal, but in this sort of on-again, off-again process that's gone on for 4 years, we're closer than we've been through that whole saga.
And Eric, what do you think the fan response here would be? Obviously, there's a long history with ESPN and Disney and the NFL, but you have your Red Zone devotees. And over separately, you've written extensively about the kind of divorce, maybe temporary, between ESPN and Major League Baseball. So it's just interesting considered in that context.
Yeah, very much the other way that ESPN and the NFL are very much arm in arm, even if this doesn't get done right now. I remember, 20 plus years ago when ESPN did the Playmaker scripted series and Paul Tagliabue was still the commissioner. There was a lot of fallout, but, that's water long since under the bridge here. The relationship is very tight. And assuming this gets done, this really sort of brings everything back to the respective core competencies where the NFL runs a sports league and they go back to really running a sports league, and these media assets, which require their own daily care and feeding, they go under the auspices of a media network who does that every day.
Yeah, so Eric, let's just break down for our viewers what exactly this deal might entail. And I think larger question is, why would the NFL want to partner with ESPN here?
So the front end of this and the main part of this is moving the NFL in-house media assets. So NFL Network, NFL Red Zone, Fantasy Business, a number of these in-house media assets to an outside entity, another media network who, again, does this every day. They've been shopping this around, and ESPN and parent company Disney have been, throughout this process, the most engaged and interested in doing this. That would be the front end of this. The other back end of this, which we're kind of remaining to see if this pans out as well, is sort of in exchange that the NFL would have an equity stake in ESPN as part of this. Kind of two separate pieces. The front end of this looks more certain right now than the back end, but it could all be together once this finally gets done.
When you talk about the NFL having an equity piece in this, it raises obvious journalism questions, right, Eric? I mean, not to put on my nerd glasses here, but there's always been questions about NFL Network having reporters who are breaking news, but of course are employed by the NFL, or at least an arm of the NFL. Do you think this would raise similar questions?
It would raise what's sort of been out there existing, because ESPN has existing rights deals with every major entity out there, pro and college, pretty much, certainly pro. They've got the clean sweep across the Big Four and a bunch of other entities. Those kind of concerns have already been out there for some time. This would certainly heighten that. And it sort of then kind of raises the shame that we don't have things like Outside the Lines anymore, because that was always a big counter argument that you had the Bob Lees of the world doing award-winning journalism. And it was really sort of a great counter argument. That doesn't really exist anymore.
Eric, why have these league-run media properties struggled so much? We know NBA TV is about to be sold. The rumors is maybe that MLB Network, which also owns the NHL Network, might be able to be housing that as well. And if NFL Network, which has really scaled back its programming and its reporting chops over the last few years, can't really run its own media company, what does it sort of tell you about the state of these league-run media ops?
It's really kind of symptomatic of this larger media disruption that we're seeing and everything sort of changing and migration to streaming and going through all of that hard day-to-day business of running a media network and renegotiating distribution agreements and doing talent deals and all those kinds of things. Again, that's not in the primary lane of a sports league. And when everything is changing in such a cataclysmic, historic way, again, a lot of these assets are better served, in my opinion, with media networks for whom it's their day-to-day business.
Eric, something I know that you've watched for years, and so have I, is every few years maybe not rumor, but speculation heats up that, well, maybe Disney should just unload ESPN. You know, every time ESPN is told to make cuts and cuts a bunch of expensive talent, they say maybe it's an albatross. Something like this seems to me to suggest the opposite, that, you know, Disney's not about to let go of ESPN anytime soon if it's going to get more in bed with the NFL and NFL Network.
The NFL, by far, the most popular programming in all of American television, full stop, regardless of genre. And sports content, and particularly NFL content, so important to Disney. And so, yes, those complaints about ESPN have been out there, and Jimmy Pitaro has to run a budget just like everybody else has to, you know, in his position has to run a budget. But the audiences that this content bring in are simply unmatched.
Yeah, very good point. Eric Fisher, our FOS reporter on this for us. Eric, thank you so much. Coming up next, everyone, prediction market Polymarket might soon be available here in the United States. So what does that mean for betting platforms like DraftKings and FanDuel? We'll get into that next.
Your approach with Marion Hampton is, if you're going to draft him aggressively and early, you better be patient, because it might take half a season before he really takes over this backfield, and it might never happen this year, depending on how Harris performs. Gadsden and Disley so far not fantasy relevant at this time. Again, a more run-heavy offense. Hampton and Najee Harris, very intriguing, but the ADP, I think, on both of them is slightly off.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Big Fish is the best player in the WNBA. She is running away with the MVP award. Why is that? Caitlin Clark injured. Asia Wilson not playing at Asia Wilson level, but it's more about the fact about what's around her has been an issue. So to me, you know, Fish is almost like the MVP because everyone else has like gone down in some way, shape, or form.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I think he's on easily the back nine of his career at this point. A lot of fans I see on social media saying, oh, we got to sign this guy. We got to sign this guy. Something left here with Noah Fant? What gives?
I think they were ready to move on from him as a veteran, but I think Fant is like a number 2 tight end for a contender who can play a lot. I think that would interest me, and I've almost been looking around trying to find a good landing spot for him, and I've settled on what if he were to go back to the Broncos and sort of back up Evan Ingram.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Dan Roberts and Baker Machado, where the world's largest prediction market, Polymarket, where you can pretty much bet on anything from sports to the Grammys to the presidential election, is now poised to officially be licensed in the United States. This after a $112 million purchase of a small derivatives exchange called QCX. So why is this such a big deal? Well, let's bring in FOS media and entertainment reporter Ryan Glasspiegel. So Ryan, why is Polymarket operating in the U.S. a big deal here?
Well, it's been banned for a little while, and its re-entrance into the market as upstart competitors like Kalshi have gained a foothold just gives people more options of where to place their bets.
And Glass, you're right to mention Kalshi's momentum recently. It feels to me like I've seen a lot more news about Kalshi, and yet it was Polymarket that dominated the cycles around the election. You know, Polymarket really, I think, surged to mainstream awareness because of the Trump prediction on there. Can you just zoom out a little and explain for anyone who doesn't know that these companies are totally different from a DraftKings, FanDuel, or at least they say they are. They even say, oh, don't call it betting. They're prediction markets, and yet probably to the average person pretty similar?
Yes, so they are federally licensed by the CFTC. Kalshi is, as well as the QCX exchange that Polymarket purchased earlier this week for the aforementioned $112 million. And that means they're regulated like commodities trading, as opposed to sports betting, which is regulated state by state and taxed state by state. Not legal in all the states, not legal in California and Texas. And then in Florida, Hard Rock has a state sanctioned monopoly on sports betting. So there's these three big states in particular that Kalshi and Polymarket are attacking in a way that you can bet on sports, but it's like not through the states in a way, if that makes sense.
Well, Ryan, why are these so popular? Because now we're seeing, traditional sports betting platforms like DraftKings and FanDuel all getting interested in acquiring companies that are doing prediction markets. So why have we seen a rise in this right now?
Well, we're seeing a rise in it because it seems that the Trump administration is going to be friendly to these exchanges and going to allow them into states where they're not allowed. And then you see states like Illinois adding 50 cent per bet surcharges, or New York taxing a high percentage of sports wagers. And all of a sudden these sports books are like, wait, if we can just have one set of regulators instead of having to deal with these people state by state, save money on taxes, I think that that's a more attractive option than the way that our business has been structured.
And as Baker mentioned, Glass, you've reported on the fact that the big dogs, so to speak, in sports betting are eyeing these prediction markets. They have an interest. What I'd wonder is, why can't they just go ahead and add these features themselves? That's always the fear for the hot tech startup, is that the big dog sees your growth and instead of buying you, just copies you.
That's a good question. The licensing procedure takes a while and it can get gummed up. So, I mean, if FanDuel or DraftKings wanted to start one of these exchanges from scratch, it would take them probably 2 years to get it off the ground. DraftKings put in an application and then withdrew it earlier this year because they realized it was going to be more expeditious for them to buy one than to build one.
If you can't build it, you buy it.
That's the American way. We know that. Ryan Glasspiegel, our front office sports media and entertainment reporter on all of this. Ryan, thank you so much for your update on this. Elsewhere, the Qatar Olympic Committee has submitted their bid to host the 2036 Olympic and Paralympic Games. This after they previously held the 2022 World Cup. So for more on this, let's bring in FOS reporter Ava Holt, who's been following this. So Ava, what do we know so far about Qatar's bid?
Yeah, so as of today, Qatar has officially submitted their bid to host the 2036 Olympics. Whether this will be a winter or summer Olympics is still unclear, but this comes ahead of them hosting the 2030 Asian Games, which is a combination of both your traditional Olympic Games with region-specific games and sports. In the press release where they announced their official bid, they also have said to have about 95% of the infrastructure necessary already to host the games.
And do we know who else is bidding?
Yeah, so a few countries have already also submitted official bids in the way that Qatar now has, and that's big cities and capitals in countries like Indonesia, India, Egypt, to name a few. But there's also other countries that have said to be still exploring or considering a bid. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Italy, Germany, Canada. And I think what's interesting, especially about Saudi Arabia as sort of this regional rival with Qatar, means that there could perhaps be sort of a geopolitical angle that could affect how this process plays out.
We've never had an Olympic Games in the Middle East. We've never had an Olympic Games in Northern Africa either. So this would be a historic front on that case.
Definitely.
But to the point of you were making about the infrastructure, they were able to build soccer stadiums really, really fast for those 2022 Olympic or World Cup games. Is the expectation that whatever they need for the Olympics, they'd be able to do it just as fast?
So according to their Olympic Committee, yes. They say that they have venue-wise almost all of the infrastructure needed to host the games. This is thanks to, in part, the 2022 World Cup and also, as I mentioned, ahead of the 2030 Asian Games. So their big pitch is that they're ready, probably more ready than they were in 2022. Whether that will be for the summer or the winter, unclear. But if it is for the summer, they're going to need a bigger and better plan than they had in 2022 when they had to move to the winter months.
Of course, every country always says they're fully ready.
Right.
We
Yes.
see if
Yes.
they
We
really
see
are.
what's happening in
Sochi,
LA
et cetera.
LA
Yeah,
right now,
Sochi,
too.
LA. We got to mention here, the controversy is obvious. You know, we talked about that Qatar did the 2022 World Cup. That was at a time where we saw a lot of pride flags and pennants, and there are anti-LGBTQ policies over there. Are we already seeing fans on social? Have you seen anything chatter responding to this, the idea of Qatar? We've just got 1 minute here to talk about this.
Yeah, so I would say that it's already raising eyebrows. During the World Cup, Qatar obviously faced a lot of harsh criticism for their labor conditions and anti-LGBTQ plus laws and rhetoric. So I would say that human rights groups will watch this bid pretty closely. And while Qatar says that they made changes and improvements after the backlash, I would argue that there's still a long way to go. The International Olympic Committee has yet to come forward at all about this issue, but I would assume that pressure will mount and sort of force them to come forward and address the fact that there was so much backlash in 2022, and how will that change in 2036?
Yeah, very good point. Ava, great reporting. Of course, you can see more of Ava's reporting over on frontofficesports.com. And of course, we do have the current Olympics coming up here soon in Italy, and then the LA ones in 2028 as well. All right, guys, coming up next on Front Office Sports today, we're heading to Charlotte for ACC Media Days. A big deal happening with their studio show, ACC Huddle. We have that coming up for you on the other side of this break.
TJ Watt going to the bench.
I don't remember the last time he had a sack in the last month of that season. And then in the playoffs, he did absolutely nothing. And then you're going to give him $41 million a year, $123 million, what, 108 guaranteed million guaranteed?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from a perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Again, I mean, I gotta tell you, if I'm in that spot, I may do it again, George. I mean, I may take that shot again. I mean, look, when he is healthy, he's the number one pick in fantasy, as good as Barkley or anybody else.
What I'll say about McCaffrey is this: if you draft him and he misses 9 games with injury, you have no one to blame but yourself.
I blame you, just because I
Everyone
can.
else does.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Dan Roberts and Baker Machado. And ACC Media Days have descended upon Charlotte, North Carolina, for a slew of big headlines, including a big one involving the ACC Network's signature show, ACC Huddle. So for that and so much more, let's go to Charlotte right now, where FOS reporter David Rumsey is at. So David, what has been the big talk so far in ACC Media Days?
Yeah, Baker, Dan, great to be with you. So this morning in Charlotte, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips opened up the media days, and he kind of took to defending the conference a little bit. I think a lot of people are thinking the ACC and Big 12 are really the second fiddle to the Big 10 and SEC, since those conferences have so much power now. And a guy like Phillips leading the ACC, which has 17 teams of its own now, coast to coast, is really defending his conference's place in college sports, still part of the Power Four.
Yeah, David, it's been great to have you on the road. You know, you were on the road last week at SEC Media Days, now this week at ACC, and your colleague Amanda Krisovich right now is at the Big Ten Media Days in Vegas. Talk to us just a little bit more about this narrative around the ACC and also Big 12 being second fiddle. It's really become like the SEC and Big Ten arguably are the Power Two within the Power Four. Did Phillips say a little bit more on that in the narratives?
Yeah, absolutely. So when he was speaking on Florida State and Clemson, and the ACC settled those lawsuits with them in March, he said that, you know, he's tired of these lazy narratives about the conference and kind of about not moving on from, you know, everybody was thinking Clemson and Florida State might be leaving the conference, and maybe they still will. Their exit fees are going to keep dropping until 2031 when they level off at $75 million. But he wants to push forward, not worry about are they going to leave, but he wants them to be able to feel good in the conference, not feel like they have to be in the conference, like they want to be in the conference. And really, they need those schools, right, if they're going to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC, because if Florida State or Clemson ever did leave, it would be to one of those Power Two conferences.
David, let's move to the media side of things. ESPN obviously runs the ACC network, and there's some big news about ACC Huddle as it sort of aligns with the college football kickoff show that we normally see on game day.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of these networks also have their college game day-esque shows, right? And the ACC network is no different. ACC Huddle, and typically it had been traveling to the marquee ACC Network game of the week. Not usually one of the better games because ESPN gets their pick of all the best ACC games. But now that show, ACC Huddle, is going to be traveling to the marquee ACC game of the week, whether that's on ESPN, ABC, whatever they deem that to be. So they're kind of trying to make their own game day, if you will. And obviously Fox has been doing this with Big Noon. The SEC network has a traveling show. So college football continues to grow, so it's not surprising to see this expansion from the ACC network as well.
Yeah, really. And any other sort of last-minute things you're seeing maybe potentially going to happen later today from Jim Phillips, the commissioner?
Yeah, so the commissioner is done with his press conference today, but we are kicking off lots of player and coaches interviews. And of course, Baker, we're going to be waiting for Thursday afternoon. Second to last is Bill Belichick and UNC. They'll be here in Charlotte Thursday afternoon. All eyes are going to be on them. I know you and Renee on Front Office Sports Today have talked about them a lot. So many fun headlines for FOS and everywhere else. So we'll be waiting on Belichick to get here on Thursday.
That is going to be very interesting to be on the ground for, David.
I can only imagine. David Rumsey for us in Charlotte. Thank you so much. And as David, of course, mentioned, you can find continuing coverage of the ACC Media Days and, of course, Big Ten Media Days as well on frontofficesports.com. All right, let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Dan, ESPN 8 The Ocho is back for its 9th year, and they're introducing 30 new competitions this year, including soap hockey, coffin wars, T-Rex racing, extreme archery, diving chest, bubblegum blowing, and my favorite, the USA Mullet Championships. Now, this is all going to be airing on ESPN platforms on July the 31st through the 3rd of August. So, Dan, of all of those out there, and by the way, there's some other ones I didn't mention out there, like Swiss stone tossing. What are you most excited for?
Well, I love a good game of soap hockey. The mullet competition, you and I would not be able to join, at least in our current state. It's funny, extreme archery actually sounds like an outlier here. It does not sound wacky enough.
No, true.
But I will say about the Ocho a couple things. One, I think it's very smart they do this.
Yeah.
It's always buzzy on social. As you've said, 9 years, which isn't that long.
No.
I don't know. I'd have to check this, but does it date back to Dodgeball, the movie? Because
that's why it was
the whole
created.
network owes a debt to that movie.
It does. It was all
really brought all
created
this to the
from that movie, and then they did cornhole and all these like oddball
Smart.
sports at the beginning. But then those became sort of commonplace in bars and everybody's basements. That now you need to have T-Rex racing and coffin wars to spice things up.
Yeah, I love all that. Now, Swiss stone tossing also sounds good. I feel like I've seen some YouTube videos of that. And one other thing I'll say too, which is that I think COVID was kind of helpful to all these weird niche things. I remember watching Marble Factory racing during the pandemic.
Yes.
Right?
We're looking for anything that was live.
Anything.
And by the way, sports rights are a premium, so they will snatch up all of these as much as they possibly can. Guys, coming up on FOS tomorrow, we're live in Austin, Texas for the MLS All-Star Game. Of course, catch our special edition of FOS Today from the RBC House on Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us. Dan Roberts joins me back here on Thursday. We'll see you later.